Okay, prenuptial agreements. They used to be for the rich and famous. Well, not anymore. Even before the financial crisis, in fact, prenups were on the rise, especially among the baby boomers. Our legal affairs contributor, Craig Wisnom, here to talk everything prenup. Real quick statistic, 80% of marriage lawyers have seen an increase in couples signing them. That's a 2006 survey. So here we are, 2010, by the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. And you say baby boomers are doing it.
There's a lot of reasons why. There's been more divorce in the past generation, so there tend to be more second marriages. People are living longer, so there's more chance that a widow or widower might remarry and have children from their prior marriage and such. And when you're getting married later in life, you each bring more into it, whether it's assets or a more established career. So all those are the things that make a premarital agreement a little more important.
And you're saying it's not a piece of paper that says, hey, this is going to fail, so here's how we're going to handle it when it fails.
Not at all. I mean, first of all, it does have to cover, well, what happens if this doesn't work out and we get divorced. But it also covers what happens in the event of a death. And especially when either person has children from a prior marriage, that is a big issue. I mean, there's always tension between a step-parent and children, and this can help alleviate those tensions.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. What under state law could happen, worst case scenario, if you have a death, one of the spouses dies, and you do not have a prenup?
Well, one of the big issues could be whose property is this? Because the deceased person's will say what happens to their property, but there can be an argument about, well, this was community property, this is what I brought into the marriage. So there could be an argument between the survivor and the children of the first person to die over whose...
What does state law usually do?
You have to argue about, well, what did I have coming into the marriage? What did we agree to hold as community property? What did we earn during the marriage? So there's a lot of facts there that people can argue about if there's not an agreement.
But if there is no agreement, it's a community property state?
It's community property, which means you start with the idea everything's half and half, but you can argue about, well, if I brought it into the marriage, it's not community property, or it was the increase in inheritance during marriage. So there's a lot of stuff you can argument. There's a lot of money for lawyers to make on issues like this that could be avoided if it's spelled out in a premarital.
You had said this is good for people who have assets that they're bringing into the marriage, but if they are anticipating an inheritance, or...
That's important too. Now, inheritance would normally be separate property anyway, but the more clarity you give as to who has what and who might receive what and what's going to happen with it, the less chance you have arguments later on, either in the event of a divorce or in the event of death.
Real quick, do not hide assets from a future spouse.
There's two things to having a good prenup. Each side needs to have their own lawyer, so that each person can ask that person privately all the things that are on their mind and really get the most out of it. And you have to be open with each other about what you own, what you earn, so you're not hiding things. That's one of the things that could invalidate a premarital agreement.
It could, because it's deceptive.
Exactly. If you're not open with it, it might not be a valid agreement.
All right, Craig, thanks so much for coming on and talking about something that's not always comfortable to talk about. Parents feel